Now, what happens if the needs of the child aren't met in early childhood and the child isn't able to naturally separate from their parents? A lot of times we have difficult upbringings. Sometimes we even have childhood experiences. I've worked with people that had what seemed like very easy upbringings, and they wouldn't even realize that they had a challenge that came up. But we always go through some kind of challenge. It's like a rite of passage. We go through, you see this communally, you see this in certain societies where at the age of 12, there's a rite of passage from childhood to adulthood. And this is a necessity to grow from child to adult. Now, we know this psychologically, there's certain different ages that we understand kind of meet that psychological match, where we know that at the age of 7, a child might be leaving the nest, going to school, kind of realizing, there's a separate me here. And then, of course, the age of 12 is a big one. The age of 12, usually the child begins, in certain cultures even, to identify at the beginning of the teen years, 13, 12. It's like this time where we're leaving childhood, realizing that we have a separate sense of self. The goal is, of course, for this to happen in a healthful way, for the process of child and caretaker to healthfully separate and be nurtured. It's not an easy time. So I want to reiterate on that the separation process is somewhat challenging for everybody. It's not meant to be easy. And so sometimes it's even more difficult. But the idea of if it doesn't happen in a healthful way and a trauma sets in during this, let's just say the caretakers themselves didn't go through a healthy separation process. So there was some trauma there from parents, or there was maybe divorce, or there was separation, a parent or a caretaker was out of the situation due to work, anything. There's so many different possibilities. What ends up happening to the child if there's not a healthful separation and a healthy sense of self that's established is this energy is experienced as trauma. And so what happens is there's emotions that are connected to this. And if the child doesn't have a healthy ability to express these emotions, they remain stuck within the subconscious. And they become what I call original wounds. Now, original wounds don't just go away. The whole idea is for the child to complete the cycle of a healthful separation, healthy self-identity, identifying as their self-conscious, self-confident self, so they could go out in the world prepared. And yes, that sometimes deals with challenges. Now, if this doesn't happen in a smooth transition, they haven't completed the step. And so essentially they get stuck in this moment. And what they will do is they will recreate through patterns the same experience, the same emotional experience over and over again until they release it. So this is why we see situations emotionally resurfacing, where maybe there's a trigger that happens. Triggers happen a lot, and this is how we can tell whether we're touching on an original wound. If something really energizes us, really triggers us, we know that that's an early childhood wounds that set in at some point, sometimes before we even have memories. And I'll get into memories later. So the whole process of this is to begin to self-identify. And if it doesn't happen in a healthy way, well, we're going to have triggers and we're going to recreate the same scenario so that we can ultimately process it. What ends up happening is what I call, and I refer to as adult tantrums.